what is the relationship or between the social media niche and the larger kind of traditional media? Are they 50-50 right now? Does anyone ever see social media overtaking traditional media, which still influences quite a few people?
I think in the broadest sense, I think that social media in its effectiveness already has overtaken traditional media. I think the Super Bowl commercial is a great way to lose a bunch of money. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure there's people in the industry that would say otherwise. But I think, for example, General Motors has had more success getting people to understand what the Chevy Volt is about, for example, through Bob Lutz's own blog than through any advertisements they've made. And if you go to GM's site and look at his blog, it's Bob Lutz's voice, and he's saying what he thinks, and people argue with him. And I know that it's filtered, and I'm sure he's got people that kind of calls attention to what he needs to respond to, but it has at least somehow the look that it is, you're talking to Bob Lutz, even at GM.
But I would also say, by contrast, Martin was in an extremely extraordinary position with Tesla because, you're marketing a green car, a revolutionary new technology with a very high price point to, a real kind of appealing to a passionate audience that, number one, has to be able to afford it and is intrigued because of all of the environmental aspects to the vehicle and the technology aspects to the vehicle, all of which are predispositions for social media. Those are like early movers, early adopters. They're left and right coast people. There are not people in Des Moines, with all due respect, who are probably, active on the Tesla blog community.
I think that there was a big distinction between the people who actually went out and bought cars and the people that became enthusiasts on our site. There was a whole bunch of people that aspired to own a Tesla and never may own one.
Right.
And those were the ones that were really following everything we did and writing about it and finding other links and connecting to us and telling each other about what we're doing.
Right.
It wasn't actually so much the people that were our customers, although they did also tend to comment.
Right.
The other thing to keep in mind is it's hard to imagine from today's perspective, but when we started becoming public about Tesla, the idea of electric car was not well known. I mean, in those days, people knew that electric cars were dead and that they sucked. That's what everybody knew. and through this channel, we changed that opinion. And it was not just my voice. It was these other enthusiasts that came in, remember I said, and argued with me, and then became enthusiasts and would comment on other blogs and so forth.
But by definition, an enthusiast is someone that wants to talk about the technology and wants to talk with other like-minded people and tends to gravitate to social media. So I would argue that any enthusiast group is really a great kind of target to reach out to in social media. By contrast,
you have to create that.
Exactly, absolutely. You have to create it, and you have to, develop the dialogue and really kind of work the channel. But by contrast, if you're, marketing a, Chevrolet truck, I'm not so sure that the Super Bowl isn't, a good vehicle for you. I think you really have to hone in on, and, cultivate a mix of channels that makes sense.
I would add to, what's your name?
My name is Tim.
Tim, so I would add to your question that it also has to do with the objective that you want to achieve. Like,
Absolutely.
for example, if you are trying to raise sales in the next 3 to 4 weeks, then social media is not your avenue. You won't succeed. It's a long-term strategy. If your product is a transactional product, more so, it's more challenging, to get people really excited about that product if it's a very commoditized product. And so maybe you actually get a good bang for the buck on the Super Bowl ad, and you can grind your teeth crazy getting people to really be excited about your I can't believe it's not butter.
but maybe to push back, I mean, Toyota launched the Scion brand, which, if you look at the car, it's a cream to nowhere car. It's just another Toyota, nothing special about it. And they turned this into a phenomenon using mostly non-traditional media.
But I get back to who's their audience. They're young.
They created an audience.
18 to 25.
I've never heard of the Toyota Scion. By the way.
And you're not young.
I think the theme here is this. Social media is a great way to connect with brand champions and enthusiasts. And I would argue it's not so great for just broad recognition, brand messaging. On the other hand, when you get the enthusiasts, they become rebroadcasters.
Yes.
And so I would argue that this is a good part of a healthy breakfast. It is one part of many things that you need to have. And to say, well, I don't need social media because I have a sort of mass market
Right.
product. Well, I think even the butter guys, the pickup truck people, you will find
Sure.
enthusiasts, and you might as well capture that social energy. And which product out there can afford to ignore it, given that it's a reasonably priced thing to connect to? On the other hand, can you ignore the Super Bowl ad? Probably not, depends on your product, but you know, it could be that the Super Bowl ad certainly tells 47 million people about your product in a way that social media will not. The two together.
But I think that, the last decade has really seen an explosion of traditional advertising, just every possible spaces and advertising spaces. We've become numb to that.
Mhm.
The social media is a way to cut
Absolutely.
through that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is it that when you talk about the rebroadcasting, you're not just talking about rebroadcasting to other enthusiasts or
That's
to
right.
purchasers, but you're also talking rebroadcasting to traditional media who's going to pick it up and
Sure.
and you give
Social
them
media
more-
is
Creative phenomenon.
organic SEO. It's organic search engine optimization. So the more you have your brand or your link retweeted, reposted, copied, liked, the more it propagates, the more Google focuses on it. And then the more traffic comes to it. And you can do that in an inorganic way. You can do search engine optimization, but there are limits. When you get retweeted, when you get reposted, this is the beginning of another dimension of search engine optimization that it is an important dimension. It's the more legitimate, I think, part of search engine optimization. Either they're talking about you or they're not, and it's hard to fake. It's possible to fake. It's very expensive, but it shouldn't be done.